The forest did not wake gently. It erupted in violence. A fragile deer cub cried out as shadows closed around it, sharp laughter cutting through the air. Hyenas snapped their jaws, circling closer, their eyes glinting with cruel hunger. The cub stumbled back, legs trembling, trapped against roots and stone. But the predators weren't alone. From the opposite side, the ground shook as a grizzly bear burst through the trees, its roar echoing like thunder. In the center of this nightmare, a lone figure surged forward, a German shepherd. His body was lean, scarred, but his spirit burned like fire. With fearless fury, he slammed into the pack, teeth flashing, fur bristling. The fight ignited instantly, predator against predator, chaos unleashed. Claws, fangs, and snarls collided in a storm of survival, and the cub's desperate eyes searched for a miracle in the madness. The battle deepened in savagery. Rex, the shepherd, lunged at a hyena, his jaws clamping down with crushing force, hurling it aside. Another leapt at his flank, tearing into his fur, but he twisted, slamming it to the dirt. The air exploded with snarls, blood spraying across the grass. Then came the bear, a living mountain, fur thick, claws glinting like knives. It swung down, aiming to crush them all beneath its rage. Rex dodged narrowly, the impact shaking the earth. For a moment, he stood between two nightmares, the snarling pack and the towering beast. The cub cowered, trembling, eyes wide with terror, every sound echoing doom. Against impossible odds, Rex fought with raw instinct, his body a blur of motion, defiance roaring louder than fear. This was no ordinary fight. It was the birth of a story that would echo through the wilderness. While predators clashed in violent frenzy, the cub's world shrank to trembling legs and pounding heartbeats. Its cries rang through the clearing, high-pitched and desperate, carrying far beyond the battlefield. Ears pinned flat, it pressed itself against the earth, tiny chest heaving with panic. Each hyena's laugh, each thunderous roar, shattered its fragile courage further. For a moment, its gaze locked on Rex, a stranger, yet the only wall between it and death. Every movement of his body seemed to defy nature itself. The cub wanted to run, but could not. Its hooves shook too violently, and its spirit clung to a single shred of hope that this fierce dog would hold the line. Alone, orphaned, and lost, the cub's innocence was now chained to the outcome of this desperate battle. Life or death hung by a fragile, breaking thread. The forest's chaos was only the surface of the story. Beneath it lay the soul of Rex, the German shepherd. Once he had been loved, a loyal companion, but life turned cruel. Abandoned, discarded like a forgotten memory, he wandered the wilderness with no purpose but survival. His body bore scars, each mark a tale of rejection and struggle. His heart grew heavy with loneliness, a fire dimmed by despair. Yet here, in the face of death, something long buried within him stirred. Protecting the helpless deer wasn't instinct alone, it was redemption. In saving another, he sought to reclaim what the world had stolen from him. The chaos around him became more than just a fight. It became a chance to rise, to matter, to carve meaning from pain. In this moment, Rex was not just surviving, he was becoming a legend.
The deer cub, known only to the wind, had its own tragic tale. Born fragile yet full of promise, it once wandered meadows with its herd, safe beneath its mother's side. But storms of fate split them apart. A night of fear scattered the herd, and in the dark chaos, the cub lost the only family it had ever known. Alone, it roamed through shadows, calling into emptiness, but no familiar voice ever answered. Hunger gnawed its belly, thirst burned its throat, and predators stalked every step. It was innocence hurled into cruelty, a soul too young to understand why the world had abandoned it. And now, as hyenas lunged and the bear thundered close, its story teetered on the edge of ending forever. But destiny had plans, and those plans carried the shape of a broken shepherd standing against the wild. Rex fought with reckless courage, slamming into hyenas one after another. Fang leapt high, jaws snapping for his throat, but Rex twisted, teeth sinking into the predator's leg, dragging it to the ground. Shadow lunged from behind, claws raking across his side, but Rex spun with a snarl, flinging it away. Blood painted his fur, his muscles burned, yet he refused to fall. The clearing rang with shrieks as the pack faltered, their cruel laughter breaking into howls of pain. The bear snarled from the edge, circling, biting its strength. Rex's body was battered, but his spirit carved through their malice. Each victory bought seconds, each strike drove the pack backwards. And as the hyena staggered, their once unshakable confidence fractured. The shepherd had turned the tide. The cub watched in awe, no longer seeing a stranger, but a savior blazing in defiance.
The grizzly loomed at the clearing's edge, its rage untamed, its hunger unsatisfied. It swiped once more, claws raking the air as Rex leapt aside, snapping fiercely. For a tense heartbeat, predator and protector locked eyes. The bear's growl rumbled like thunder, a promise of battles yet to come. But for now, it relented, lumbering back into the trees, shadows swallowing its colossal form. The forest fell into uneasy silence. The hyenas slunk away, limping and snarling, their laughter extinguished. And there, in the battered grass, stood Rex, panting, bleeding, but unbroken. The cub, wide-eyed, crept forward, tiny legs trembling with uncertainty. For the first time since losing everything, it felt the faint warmth of hope. The shepherd had driven back the darkness, but his journey had only just begun. Somewhere deep inside, the wild was already preparing its return. A graceful adult deer standing in an open meadow, body slender and elegant, smooth light brown coat with many distinct white spots across its back and sides. The head has exactly 2 long, straight, smooth antlers, no branches, no forks, no curves, no palmate shapes, only 2 simple straight horns pointing upward. The horns are clean, cylindrical, unbroken, and symmetrical. Large, soulful eyes showing loyalty, sadness, and remembrance. Surrounding environment: tall golden grass glowing in sunset light, ultra-realistic cinematic rendering with fine details of fur, muscle, and lighting. Important: no branching antlers, no multiple prongs, no curves, only 2 simple straight horns.
Rex turned, limping away, his body aching from wounds and exhaustion. He had fought enough battles for one day, and his instinct urged him back into solitude. Yet behind him, soft hooves followed. The cub stumbled after him, refusing to be abandoned. Every time Rex paused, the deer stopped too, staring with wide, pleading eyes. He tried to quicken his pace, but the cub only pressed closer, unwilling to let go of the only protector it had ever known. The forest whispered around them, wind moving through leaves as if urging his heart to soften. Rex sighed, his heavy chest rising with both pain and uncertainty. Though his past told him to walk away, his soul hesitated. The cub's persistence chipped away at the walls around his heart, leaving him torn between his fear of loss and the fragile bond forming beside him. A graceful adult deer standing in an open meadow, body slender and elegant, smooth light brown coat with many distinct white spots across its back and sides. The head has exactly 2 long, straight, smooth antlers, no branches, no forks, no curves, no palmate shapes, only 2 perfectly vertical spear-like horns pointing upward. The horns are clean, cylindrical, unbroken, and symmetrical. Large, soulful eyes showing loyalty, sadness, and remembrance. Surrounding environment: tall golden grass glowing in sunset light. Ultra-realistic cinematic rendering with fine details of fur, muscle, and lighting. Important: no branching antlers, no multiple prongs, no curves, only two simple, straight horns.
The following days tested their fragile bond. Rex led the cub to water, standing guard as it drank nervously at the stream. He found patches of grass and berries, allowing it to graze while he scouted the shadows for threats. At night, he carved out clearings, circling before laying down, ensuring the cub slept safely at his side. Their routines grew naturally, each step weaving their lives tighter together. The cub looked to him constantly, learning trust in every motion, every glance. For Rex, who once walked alone, this responsibility became a strange comfort. Though his body carried scars, his heart began to mend. The wilderness, once cruel and empty, no longer felt like a prison. With each sunrise, Rex found himself less a wanderer and more a guardian. In protecting the cub, he was rediscovering the fragments of himself he thought long lost. Life in the forest was not easy. Storms swept through the meadows, forcing them to huddle together beneath branches while thunder split the sky. Hunger sometimes drove them deeper into shadowed valleys where danger lurked unseen. Smaller predators tested them, foxes and wolves trying their chances, but Rex drove each away with fearless determination. The cub grew stronger, steadier on its legs, yet always stayed close, trusting him for guidance. Together, they faced rain, hunger, and fear, each trial knitting them closer. Rex's old pain, the bitterness of abandonment, softened beneath the cub's loyalty. He no longer felt like an exile. He had found purpose in protecting another, purpose in giving his heart again. What began as an accident of survival was transforming into something far greater, a family born not of blood, but of choice and unbreakable devotion.
Seasons shifted. Grass grew tall, streams swelled with spring rain, and the cub flourished. Once fragile and trembling, it now leapt through the fields with strength, yet always returned to Rex's side. Their bond became known in the forest. Other creatures watched from the shadows with cautious awe, a predator and prey walking together, defying the laws of the wild. Rex no longer wandered without aim. Each step carried meaning. He taught the cub how to read the forest, how to listen to its whispers, how to sense the hidden dangers. In return, the deer offered him joy he had never known, running playfully, resting peacefully against him at night. Together, they painted a story the wilderness itself seemed to honor, that love, when born of survival, could overcome even the oldest boundaries. Their family was small, but it was whole. Rex had once been a shell of himself, his spirit dimmed by betrayal. But now, when he looked at the cub, his chest swelled with pride and belonging. The nights of loneliness were gone. The ache of abandonment eased each time the deer pressed against him, trusting him without hesitation. The wild had given him a second chance, not through humans, but through the fragile creature he had saved. Each scar he bore became not a mark of despair, but proof of battles fought for something greater. He walked taller, his eyes sharper, his will stronger. The cub's presence had not only given him purpose, but had restored the pieces of himself he thought were gone forever. He was no longer just a stray. He was a protector, a father, a hero to one life that depended on him completely.
Yet the wild never forgets. In the distance, where the shadows of the forest grew thick, a familiar roar shook the trees. The grizzly had returned, its hunger unquenched, its eyes burning with primal rage. It prowled the mountainsides, sniffing the wind, searching for prey. Though Rex and the cub lived in peace for a time, danger had not disappeared. It only waited. The forest carried warnings in the silence of birds, in the restless stirrings of smaller creatures fleeing unseen threats.
Rex felt it too, an unease creeping into his heart. He scanned the tree line more often, ears pricked, body tense. The bond he had built was now a vulnerability, one he would defend at any cost. The bear was coming back, and when it did, the fight would not end until one guardian stood or fell in blood and courage. Months turned into a year. The cub had grown into a young deer, graceful and strong, its legs steady, its spirit bright. No longer fragile, it carried the beauty of survival in every movement, yet it remained by Rex's side, unwilling to stray far from the one who had saved its life. Their companionship had grown into something unshakable, more than survival, more than chance. Together, they were family. The forest had accepted their story, granting them days of peace and safety. Rex, older and scarred, walked proudly, his loyalty never wavering. He had given the deer not only protection, but a chance at life itself. And in return, the deer had given him love and meaning. Their world seemed whole. Yet, beneath the peace, the shadow of the bear prowled, closer now than ever before, its hunger still unfulfilled.
Their life together shone in moments of pure joy. Willow, for the deer had found a name in the whispers of nature, grazed freely in meadows while Rex kept watch. They chased each other across fields, their laughter and barks carried on the wind. At night they lay beneath the stars, the young deer nestled against him, while the forest wrapped them in quiet serenity. The seasons painted their bond across time. Golden leaves, snowy nights, blossoms of spring. Each day Rex's pride grew, seeing Willow strong and fearless. For him, every sunrise was a gift, every heartbeat beside her a blessing. Their happiness was fragile but real, a rare miracle in the wilderness. But in the distance, eyes watched. The peace they cherished was not forever. The storm that once began with fury was circling back, hungrier and more relentless than before. The grizzly moved like a ghost of rage through the valleys, its massive frame cut through undergrowth, its growls rattling the stillness. Every beast in the forest gave way, trembling beneath its presence. The memory of its first clash with the shepherd lingered, fueling its anger. Now it hungered not just for prey, but for vengeance. Its nose caught the scent. The deer, now larger, still alive, still thriving under the guardian's watch. Fury boiled in its chest. This was no longer a hunt for food, it was a reckoning. Each step carried a storm closer to their meadow of peace. Unseen, unheard, it stalked the edges, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The wild had not forgotten. The bear was coming to finish what it had started, and this time, nothing would stop its wrath until blood was spilled.
The day dawned bright, the meadow painted in gold as Willow grazed peacefully, her head low among the grasses. Rex rested beneath a tree nearby, eyes half closed but ears still sharp. The air carried a deceptive calm, a stillness that felt heavier than usual. Birds sang, yet their tones wavered as if sensing what lurked beyond sight. Rex stirred, his body uneasy, instincts whispering warnings he could not ignore. He rose slowly, scanning the tree line, his scars aching with the memory of past battles. Willow lifted her head, sensing his unease, ears twitching nervously. For a moment, silence hung like a held breath. Then, without warning, the ground trembled beneath massive steps, and the tranquility shattered. The storm had come. The beast was here. The meadow that once promised safety was about to become a battlefield once again. With a thunderous roar, the grizzly exploded from the shadows, its colossal form charging with terrifying speed. Willow froze for a split second, then bolted, her hooves tearing through the grass as panic drove her forward. The ground shook beneath the bear's pursuit, each stride closing the gap with frightening ease.
Its jaws snapped, breath hot and foul, hunger blazing in its eyes. The meadow that once felt endless now became a trap, every direction swallowed by the predator's presence. Rex barked sharply, leaping into motion, but the distance was great. Willow's cries of terror split the air, desperate, piercing, calling for her protector. The chase stormed into the woods, branches snapping, leaves scattering. The forest itself seemed to scream with them. The beast's fury was unrelenting, and the fragile life Rex had sworn to protect was seconds away from destruction. The young deer raced through the undergrowth, heart hammering, lungs burning as fear clawed at her chest. She leapt fallen logs, dodged thorny branches, but the bear's massive form crushed everything in its path. Its growls shook the air, every thunderous step driving it closer. Willow's legs trembled, exhaustion creeping fast, but still she ran, driven only by instinct to survive. Her cries rang desperately, each one echoing through the trees, a plea for salvation. Behind her, the monster's breath grew louder, closer, a storm bearing down on fragile life. In the distance, Rex surged through the forest, ears locked on her voice, his paws pounding the earth with relentless determination. Though older, though wounded, his spirit burned stronger than pain. The chase was no longer hers alone. Her guardian was coming, faster, fiercer, driven by love stronger than fear itself. Willow's screams pierced the wilderness, a haunting sound that pulled every fiber of Rex's soul forward. He tore through the forest, leaping over roots, crashing through brush, his body burning but his spirit unyielding. The cries grew sharper, closer. He was gaining. Memories flashed in his mind of the helpless cub she once was, of the day he chose not to walk away. He could not, would not fail her now. Each bark he gave was both a warning to the bear and a promise to Willow. His chest burned, legs ached, blood seeped from reopened scars, but nothing slowed him. He was not just running to save her, he was running to preserve everything he had become. The forest seemed to blur around him, all sound consumed by her desperate cries, until he finally saw the clearing ahead, where death waited. Bursting into the clearing, Rex's eyes locked on the nightmare before him. Willow was pinned against a fallen log, the Grizzly towering above, teeth bared, claws ready to strike. Fear froze her legs, but her eyes lit with hope the moment she saw him. With a feral snarl, Rex hurled himself forward, his body a blur of determination. He collided with the bear, teeth snapping at its throat, claws tearing fur as the two forces crashed together. The meadow shook with violence, the air filled with growls and the sound of battle. The bear roared, swinging massive paws, but Rex refused to falter. His bark thundered louder than fear, his courage brighter than death itself. The guardian had arrived, and this fight was no longer prey against predator. It was a final war between love and fury, fought in blood and fire. Willow scrambled back as the two titans clashed, hooves trembling as she pressed against the fallen log. The bear's rage was unrelenting, its eyes burning with hunger and vengeance. Rex snarled, teeth sinking into fur, forcing the monster back with sheer defiance. But every strike cost him. Claws raked across his flank, blood staining his coat. Still he pressed on, refusing to yield an inch. Willow cried out, torn between running and staying, fear holding her rooted to the ground. Her heart ached as she watched the only protector she had ever known risk everything. The clearing became a storm of violence, every strike echoing like thunder. The deer's body shook, but her spirit whispered prayers into the air. Once again she was cornered. Once again her fate hung entirely on the courage of the dog who loved her. The bear reared up, towering over Rex with terrifying force. For a moment, the shepherd seemed impossibly small beneath the mountain of muscle and fury. Yet his spirit burned larger than his body. With a desperate bark, Rex hurled himself forward again, teeth locking onto the bear's shoulder. The beast roared in pain,
staggering slightly under his relentless assault. Willow watched, wide-eyed, her heart breaking with each strike. She wanted to flee, to escape the terror, but her hooves refused. She could not abandon him, not after all he had done. Rex's eyes flickered once to her, not with fear, but with determination. This was his choice, his purpose. He was not fighting for himself anymore. He was fighting for her, for the bond that had given his broken life new meaning, and he would not stop, no matter the cost. The clash shook the clearing. The bear swung down with crushing force, claws tearing into Rex's side, flinging him against the ground. Pain seared through his body, but he rose again, teeth bared, lungs heaving. He leapt back into the fray, snapping, dodging, weaving with impossible resolve. Each attack left him more battered, yet he fought harder, as if pain only fueled his fire. The bear snarled, anger mounting at the defiance of such a small creature. It lunged forward, jaws snapping, but Rex twisted, biting deep into its leg, forcing another howl of rage. The air became a storm of fur, blood, and fury, predator against protector in a war for survival. The forest itself seemed to hold its breath. This was no longer just a battle. It was a test of heart, and Rex's burned brighter than ever before.
Blood soaked Rex's fur, dripping from gashes carved by the bear's claws. His breaths came ragged, each one heavier than the last, yet his eyes never dimmed. Each movement carried the weight of determination stronger than his battered body. He lunged again, snapping at the beast's face, forcing it back step by step. Willow cried, her voice breaking the silence between roars and snarls, her soul begging him to survive. But Rex fought not for survival, but for her. He was no longer the broken stray wandering aimlessly. He was a guardian, a father, a hero forged in sacrifice. The bear's strength was vast, yet Rex's courage carved through its rage like fire through darkness. Pain chained his body, but love freed his spirit. And as the battle raged, he proved that the heart of a protector could defy even death itself. With one final surge, Rex launched forward, his teeth sinking into the bear's neck with a desperate, unbreakable grip. The beast roared, thrashing wildly, smashing him against the ground. Yet he held firm, his body burning with the last of his strength. The bear staggered, weakened, its fury faltering beneath his relentless assault. Finally, with a guttural growl, it pulled back, retreating into the shadows of the forest. Its massive frame vanished among the trees, leaving only silence and the smell of blood in its wake. Rex stumbled, his legs trembling, his chest heaving. He had won. Against all odds, he had driven away the monster that haunted them. Willow rushed forward, pressing her muzzle against him, eyes wide with both relief and terror. The danger had passed, but victory came at a terrible cost. The guardian's body was broken.
Rex collapsed into the grass, blood seeping into the earth beneath him. His breaths came shallow, each one weaker than the last. Willow nudged him desperately, her cries soft but filled with anguish. She pressed against him, begging him to rise, but his strength was fading. His eyes flickered, turning once to the deer he had saved, the companion who had given him purpose. In that gaze, there was no fear, only peace. He had fulfilled his promise. He had given everything for her. His chest rose once more, then fell still. The meadow grew silent, the weight of his sacrifice hanging heavy in the air. Willow stood over him, her heart breaking, her body trembling with sorrow. The guardian who had once saved her was gone. Yet his spirit lingered, etched forever into her memory, unbroken by death. Days later, Willow wandered through the forest, her steps heavy with grief. But then, in the distance, familiar shapes emerged. A herd of deer, her long-lost family. They approached cautiously, their presence warm and welcoming. She joined them, her heart torn between joy and sorrow. Though she had found her bloodline again, part of her remained with the shepherd who had given his life for hers. Every meadow she grazed, every shadow she feared, she carried his memory. His courage was her shield, his love her compass. The forest continued its endless cycle of life and death, but their story stood apart, a tale of loyalty that defied nature itself. Willow would grow, thrive, and live, but she would never forget the dog who fought the wild for her. Rex's sacrifice lived on, eternal in her heart.